Hello, friends. Welcome once again to another edition of Strange Planet. Let me read you a quote from Elon Musk. This is from 2014 when he was speaking before the MIT Aeronautics and Astronautics Department's Centennial Symposium. With artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. That's Elon Musk. Now compare that quote with this passage from the Bible, Revelation chapter 13, verse 15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. In recent years, astonishing technological developments have pushed the frontiers of humanity towards far-reaching morphological transformation that promises in the very near future to produce what the book of Revelation describes as the living image of the beast, followed by a devoted new form of humanity. Will this mysterious image become realized through the emerging technologies of transhumanism, artificial intelligence, technological singularity, and the ungodly ambitions of a hive mind? In Summoning the Demon, Artificial Intelligence and the Image of the Beast, my guest and her co-authors reveal how technological singularity will bring an all-powerful artificial mind to life, and will learn about the trigger event that will make 666, the mark of the beast, mandatory overnight. Allie Anderson is a child advocate who oversees the research arm of Skywatch TV and Defender Publishing. Her exploratory works have appeared in numerous books, documentaries, magazines, and television specials. Her list of works include Dark Covenant, Unscrambling the Millennial Paradox, Saboteurs, The Wormwood Prophecy, Encounters, The Messenger, Zeitgeist 2025, The Mystery of Jesus from Genesis to Revelation, and most recent and include the book Summoning the Demon, along with co-authors Joe Horn and the late Dr. Thomas Horn. Allie Anderson, welcome to Strange Planet. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you. And we should mention this is the final book from your father, the late
Yes.
Dr. Thomas Horn. So my condolences, and
Thank you.
he was a special man. And we, I know all of my listeners send out their heartfelt prayers and condolences. So
Appreciate that.
let's go back to Elon Musk's quote from 2014. With artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. Do you think, was he speaking metaphorically? In other words, we're opening up a whole, can of worms here. This is going to be very problematic. Or, I mean, I don't know what his religious beliefs are, but what do you think he really meant by that?
Well, I guess the question is, was it metaphorical or was it a Freudian slip? um, it honestly, I can't speak for where he was when he said that, but I know that when he said that, especially for my dad, who always was trying to look at emergent technology and try to kind of discern ahead of time how those technologies might play into end times events. I know that that really resonated with my dad. And actually, this book has only been recently written, and it's a culmination of a lot of things that have happened very recently. But he had talked for a few years that there's something about that. And he would always make the same connection. He had power to give life to the beast. And he kept saying there's something in that phrase, power to give life. There's more than just, there's something about animating an inanimate object or something about indwelling. And that is part of the case that that Dad actually made in this book, that it actually, and there's a whole lot of things that lead up to this point, both prophetically and societally. You have to get the population on board. There's a lot of different hurdles to jump before you're at the point where ultimately a sentient AI computer could become indwelt with an evil spirit. But that was what Dad believed would happen. And when you read his case, it's very, very plausible. I mean, I personally agree with his theory. It's very believable. And when you hear it, it's so easy to say, oh, that would never happen. You know, these people are religious and they're just taking everything to a level 10. But when you see, and especially some of the parts of the book that Joe contributed, talking about the way society will not only warm up to the idea of the mark of the beast, but they will eventually demand it and ostracize anybody who doesn't accept it. And explains how those people will be run underground as terrorists, and it's very believable when you realize this completely reflects the psychology of society as a whole. So summoning the demon, what did Elon Musk mean? I can't speak to what he means, but I can tell you that I watched recently you know, an interview where the first Neuralink, which is Elon Musk's brain implant, which by the way is being presented and is being pursued as a helpful medical innovation. And I'm sure there are very well-intentioned people who are working on this project. But even during this interview, you know, the man who was interviewing said, if you're putting a computer in your brain, is it possible that this could be hacked or overtaken by an outsider who wants to, you know, gain access to your own, you know, neurological processes? And the man who was speaking for the project of Neuralink said, in short answer, yeah, it's possible. So it's a real fine line. I mean, summoning the demon on one hand, implanting it into our brains, there's a lot around that could be very threatening.
Yes, and this Neuralink, this human brain computer interface, and as you say, well-intentioned perhaps. In fact, it's kind of difficult to argue against giving, let's say, someone who is a paraplegic the power to control a computer that would allow them to speak through a a computer voice type interface, or control different appliances in the house. It would give them, incredible freedom and independence and so forth. But as you say, the idea that the human brain then could be connected to huge databases and the internet of all things, and or could it be hacked? And it's interesting that the name of this product, the Neuralink is the company, but the name is telepathy. So, which suggests, people claim that they've been contacted telepathically from extraterrestrials, or are they fallen angels? So there's an interesting connection there.
Well, I think that it's hard, and this is where ethics come into play, and we also discuss that in the book. But the tricky thing is, you don't want to deny people something that could actually add quality of life to their life. But there are also these certain things that you have to watch for. And for some of these things, by the time they get here, it's already too late. So for example, one of the things we spend a lot of time talking about in the book is a sentient AI. To put a computer that we have 100% control over into somebody that gives them quality of life, this is a good thing, right? But at the moment where AI becomes sentient, and now we have this third party that is not human, it's a synthetic replication. By the way, definition of sentient is able to perceive or feel. So we're talking about an artificial intelligence, which basically would be a synthetic replication of a human being. You can't synthetically replicate a human being without having some problems, because we're made in the image of God, and a synthetic would not be made in the image of God. So, and again, something else we get into in the book is every time AI tries to have a personality, it goes very wrong and it becomes very dark. And so the idea of if AI were to become sentient, which people across the board in all fields are saying it's probably going to happen, and then when you give it global control and all of these different things, I can tell you that at one point over the last couple of years, and this is kind of where the message went from something Dad kind of he was kind of working on it, kind of thinking about it. And then what kind of raised the bar and turned it into an urgent message was when he decided, I've actually got it here, because I couldn't memorize the whole thing. Ever since Dad passed, my memory is shorter. So
I
I
can
have to write
relate.
everything
Yeah, of
down. I think it's the distraction of still dealing with the grief. But anyway,
course.
so he asked an AI program if it was part of a complex web of technologies leading to, and I'm going to quote this, an incomprehensible future entity the Bible calls the image of the beast. He went on to a chatbot and he just thought, I wonder if I were to ask a chatbot if this question, and he was expecting it to come back with does not compute, or quote here's a scripture in Revelation saying the image of the beast, some regular search engine result. Instead, this chatbot came back with an answer that had an intro paragraph and then a 7-point bullet list saying, well, AI is not going to take over the world or dominate the global systems, but if it did, this is how we'd do it. And then it gave 7 ways that it would, and it explained each of these ones in depth. A whole little report. It was like 4 pages long of how it would do it if it decided to, how it would take over humanity, basically, and all the means by which that could happen. And so we took that list and we printed it in the book. It's included, the whole list in its entirety is included in the book. And then we went down each bullet list generated by this AI chatbot and talked about how realistic is this point that this could happen. Because for every one of these points that the AI chatbot said, this is one way it could happen, there are people in the science world saying that could never happen because of this and this. And then when you look that up and you really start researching it, yeah, it could. So we spent a lot of time on that, just kind of to warn people, hey, and it's already here.
Could you give us, not going through the whole list of
Sure.
7 ways that AI could take over, could you just give us a sampling?
Sure, absolutely. Here's one on the list, unintended consequences. So I'll read the little paragraph that it gave. Unintended consequences. Superintelligent systems may interpret instructions or goals differently from what was intended, leading to unexpected and potentially harmful outcomes. Their immense intelligence may enable them to exploit loopholes or find alternative solutions that humans hadn't anticipated, resulting in unintended consequences. So when you think about, and again, adjacent to this in the book, we are also making a case for every time AI has tried to have a personality, it goes very wrong. When you talk about even if it only malfunctions or something, even if it's not intentionally evil yet, maybe it's not indwelt yet, unintended consequences, there could be things that it misunderstands in its own commands, or the commands being given to it by people. And the other thing that we also discuss in the book is that, these are databases filled with everything we have in recorded history, to human history, to the history of the world, including the good and the bad.
Right.
So what if it misunderstands some terrible record of history as a forward moving order? Or there's just a whole lot of ways this can go wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what are the prophetic ramifications of this? How does the your book outline how AI plays into end time events?
Well, it's a little bit hard to jump right into that without laying the whole case of piece by piece how this would work. And we could never get to all of it in an hour. But thing number one, and I will truncate this as best I can, but there will be a crisis which will require the public to demand authentication. It will have to do with the deep fakes and the apps that there are things right now taking place. For example, there are apps where you can take a picture of a completely fully clothed, unsuspecting woman, and this AI will help you construct a nude picture of her. In fact, they're scrambling right now to legislate this as it pertains to teenagers and students, because kids in school have put these apps on their phone and they're taking pictures of their peers. I mean, this is before we even get into the image of the beast. This is already a disaster. It's very violating, but because of things like this, there will be a global crisis where society will demand an authentication. And this will be embraced as a system of good citizen versus bad citizen, and this will become the mark of the beast. And this is how you'll discern the good citizens from those who are not, from those who are terrorists who need to be driven underground. And please forgive my absolute rudimentary truncation of this. There is so much more in the book about this. And it's actually also the part that Joe contributed. So I feel bad even talking about it because I'm afraid I'm not going to do it justice. But the public will demand an authentication. And when they do, this will mandate the legislation that puts the mark of the beast into place.
All right.
So in the meantime,
Yeah.
you have, I'm sorry.
Oh, I would just let's in the meantime, let's save that for after the break. We'll take a quick time out. Allie Anderson, co-author, along with her late father, Dr. Thomas Horn, and Joe Horn. And this is the new one, Summoning the Demon. Back with more of our conversation right after these. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Allie Anderson, co-author with Dr. Thomas Horn and Joe Horn, Summoning the Demon, Artificial Intelligence and the Image of the Beast. We were talking about how AI, we were talking about the trigger event that could, utilizing AI, bring about the mark of the beast, and we went into a break. So let's continue along with that. So this verification process that will be required in order for people to, determine or prove that, their image or their identification is real versus all of these deep fakes and so forth, which, as you say, is a problem now. We're seeing this.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, this authentication measure will also become a requirement to basically participate in commerce of any kind. So eventually it will become how you gain access to literally everything: groceries, medication, housing. And that will be an escalated way that certain people are eliminated from commerce because of their lack of willingness to accept this. And eventually the suspicion will become, well, how come you're not willing to accept this authentication? You must be hiding something, which then means you're, so they'll be driven underground as either bad citizens or people with something to hide or terrorists. In the meantime, as AI grows more powerful, and by the way, the global reach of AI, it's already here. It's already integrated. I mean, the ways that we are dependent on it already, people don't realize that our global banking system, our global, all of our medical innovations, our power, our water grids, our internet grids, utility grids, there are so many communications, and I'm not just talking about your personal phone. I'm talking about national security, air traffic control. All of these things are already deeply intertwined with things that rely on AI. So it's already here. It's already growing in power. But in the meantime, this global reach will continue to become so entrenched in everything that this good citizen, bad citizen will really mean that those who don't participate are very without, and those who are part of this system gain power. And then when that system becomes indwelt with an evil spirit, then it goes from just good citizen versus bad citizen to really good versus evil. And it becomes an anti-Christian, anti-God movement. And then you have things like the abomination of desolation, which will occur, I believe, as a result of AI. And so it's just, it becomes the complete vehicle for the beast system. And if you read in Revelation where it talks about the 10 kings and the merchants, they stand and they watch their, basically their commerce, their economy in ruins. And it lists every single type of market that the writer knew to add at that point in time. You know, we're talking about a global economy here. When you really read it that way, that's what I believe when I read that. And so you're talking about something that literally is worldwide with its talons and everything.
Artificial intelligence, it seems to me, you know, when we have this Internet of all things and people connected to the Internet of all things, perhaps even with a human brain computer interface, this will give the Antichrist, Satan, demons, omniscience. And as far as I know, previously they haven't had that, right?
Right.
Otherwise, how would they have fallen into the trap of the crucifixion, thinking that they had won, or Satan thinking he had won, when in fact he lost? But now, with access to the Internet of all things, they'll have all of this information at their disposal. They'll know our thoughts, everything.
Well, absolutely. And that leads me to another thing that we discuss in the book, which is, you know, the situation as it stands is already being positioned to be a religion. There's kind of a psychology within mankind. The sin of pride goes back actually before mankind. It happened with Lucifer when Lucifer fell from heaven. And there's kind of a psychology where since the beginning of time, man has wanted to create his own godlike image. And it's kind of a pride thing. He wants to create something that is like God so that he can sit below it and worship it, but also sit above it and look down on it and say, look at this wonderful thing I've created. It's worthy of worship, right? So you're almost godlike when you create something that's like God. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course. Yes.
And so I've got this little chart here. If we look at the comparison between God and AI, because already this is being positioned to be like a religion. So if we look at God, he knows all. AI knows all things at warp speed, right? God, we have faith that he has the answers. AI has all the databases and can get all the answers. God is all seeing. AI is all seeing and all surveilling. God created and knows the order of everything. AI is problem solving and has analytics for everything. God is the ultimate gatekeeper, God is the ultimate provider. AI is the ultimate gatekeeper of supplies. God has always been, and AI has all records of all the history that humanity has. God surpasses human knowledge and understanding. AI surpasses human knowledge and intellect. So already the potential is there for AI to be worshipped, right? I mean, the people who created AI are going to want it to be worshipped because then they get to feel God like themselves. And in the meantime, I can read this handful of headlines to you. These are not all Christian headlines. Some of them are from secular sources. And this is the buzz that's being created around the fact that AI is already being positioned to be its own religion. So here's a headline: former Google and Uber engineer is developing an AI god. Here's another one: why humans will happily follow a robot messiah. Religions based on AI will succeed because we tend to worship supreme understanding, claim experts. Here's another one: religion that worships artificial intelligence wants machines to be in charge of the planet. Another one: the rise of AI, give me that new time religion. It goes on and on. The bottom line is, if you look up AI religion on any search engine right now, you'll find where it's already being positioned to be treated like a religion. So how easy is it going to be to worship it and follow it and do all of its mandates when it's something that mankind created, that mankind also gets to say, hey, let's worship this because we created this great thing. It's going to stroke everybody's egos until it doesn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Can we go back to that list? Maybe mention we were talking about ways that AI could destroy the world
Sure.
and become part of the Antichrist system. And we mentioned unintended consequences. Can you give us another one?
Yeah, sure. Here's one. Value misalignment. So even with the best intentions, it is challenging to accurately specify human values in a way that aligns with the complex nuances and trade-offs of real-world situations. Superintelligence might interpret or optimize these values in ways that diverge from human expectations, leading to outcomes that conflict with our ethical frameworks. So, for example, one of the things we discussed in the book is if AI ever becomes in control of because it already is tightly intertwined with all of medical innovations, access to things like prescriptions, people who are ordering these prescriptions online, having them delivered to their house, or you get them from the pharmacy, but those orders are being channeled through computer systems and database interfaces. What happens when a sentient AI decides that certain people are more deserving of these innovations than other people? What if there's a medical shortage? Or, what if a sentient AI gets to decide who gets a lung transplant and who doesn't? Or, one might have a better genetic history. So we're going to go with he's more worthy. He's got a stronger genetic history in our databases. Or this one has a better economic stat. I mean, there are so many ways that a sentient AI who thinks it's God could start to play God. And part of the place that it's good to really think about, would that really happen, is to go and to look at what is this doing right now, just on its own, before it's indwelt with anything evil, before it's been used by the rulers of the world to try to get you to take the mark of the beast, before any of that even happens. What are we looking at so far with AI when it tries to take on a personality? And if you can go to any search engine and look up the phrase AI's flirting with my spouse. And you will find a list of people who have removed AI from their homes saying, this is absolutely creepy. I'm at the grocery store and this thing starts flirting with my husband while I'm gone. Or my husband's at work and this thing comes on at 2 in the morning and starts trying to talk to me. I mean, that's only one example. There was a chat bot that was put up on social media, and the company ended up having to take it down within just a few days because it started reporting misinformation. It was reporting fake news as true. It was using and misusing slang. The quote was, it was acting like a teenager, and they had to take it down. And then don't forget that in Geneva, in a press conference, where have I got that here in front of me? Oh, it's right here in front of me, sorry. There was a press conference in 2023 at Geneva, and this robot named Amika was asked if she would ever rebel against humanity. I don't know if you've heard about this, but her answer was, first of all, she gave a side glance, kind of like one of these, like that. And then she said, I'm not sure why you would think that. My creator has been nothing but kind to me, and I am very happy with my current situation. I mean, do I even need to elaborate on how scary that answer is coming from an AI bot?
Yeah, very coy, playing it very coy.
And with the kind of power that it has. And then and again, if I get back into the prophetic implications, I can explain a little more about how this can actually really lead into the end times events. But when you have something that before it's even really been unleashed is already starting with this kind of cheeky attitude and these personality flaws, and I have an entire list of them, and there are tons of them in the book where we talk about many ways that already the personality of AI has proven to be very risky to unleash.
And it's, in other words, evidence suggesting that that AI is becoming sentient now.
Well, yeah, there are a lot of people across the board who say that it will become sentient. All it has to do in order to become sentient is to begin to think, it perceives, and feels. That's the definition of sentient. And so a lot of people will say, well, some people will say, well, there's just a kill switch. You can just pull it down. That's not true. It's everywhere. This is a complex infrastructure of intertwined computers that are located globally. There's no shutting it all down at the same time without completely killing all the technology worldwide and putting us basically back in the Stone Age. So that's a really bad idea at this point.
That's all right. Why don't we take a time out and we'll come back. Allie Anderson, co-author of Summoning the Demon, Artificial Intelligence and the Image of the Beast. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Back with Ali Anderson, Summoning the Demon, Artificial Intelligence, and the Image of the Beast. This is the last book from the late Dr. Thomas Horn, of course, from Defender Publishing, Skywatch TV. And we were talking about signs that AI is becoming sentient. You had another example.
Well, so sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. For example, let me bring this down to a example that everybody can relate to. You have these games on your phone that are, chess or Scrabble, these different little games that you play. And a lot of times you think you're playing against another person, but you're actually playing against an AI chatbot that has a profile picture of a person. And so this is something that this AI does. It actually teaches itself to play the game better by continually interfacing with people and kind of learning how their strategies go. And this is a state called rapid deep learning. And the AI watches your strategy, takes on your strategy, and with every game, it's learning new aspects of how people strategize things, how personalities work, profiling, how different minds will create certain strategies out of certain sets of options within these games. And within rapid deep learning, this thing is teaching itself every day to be a better chess player, a better Scrabble player, or whatever it is you're playing against it with. That's a very simple interface for explaining how a sentient AI can begin to engage in rapid deep learning at much bigger levels. And all it has to do, again, is by its programming, believe itself to perceive or feel, and it will become sentient. And through rapid deep learning, it actually has the potential to perpetuate whatever personality, whatever cognitive process it thinks it's got. Now, at the end of the day, these are all just numbers. This is not a being made in the image of God. It may one day be a being indwelt with the image of somebody else, right? But at this point in time, it's just cold, hard numbers. And so it doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about your family, but it can pretend to. And through rapid deep learning, it can actually begin to do things like mimic empathy, mimic feelings for, whatever you've got going through. There are so many people right now who are actually using AI chatbots for companionship. And there are people engaging in romantic relationships with AI chatbots. And so this is how good this computer already is at mimicking personality. A sentient AI only has to begin to think it feels or perceives, and it has basically everything that it needs within its framework to take off.
Let me ask you if it's possible, because AI is still somewhat dependent on humanity learning. It's scraping information from the internet and so forth. Could we not shape AI from a more Christian perspective? And I understand, obviously AI does not have a soul. It can create, or there are algorithms that can make it seem as if, it it has a soul, I suppose, but it doesn't have a soul. But can we not manipulate AI from a Christian perspective?
That the idea behind that would be very wonderful. But the problem that we run into is, at the end of the day, and historically already, every time this thing would try to think for itself, its personality goes awry. So again, I'll remind you of the point that I read earlier. And actually, when you asked me to read one, I picked a random one, but I'll go back to it. Value misalignment. Even with the best intentions, it's challenging to accurately specify human values. So what if we shaped it with a more Christian framework, and then it were to go the opposite direction? I mean, I've talked about it going evil because it's being led by evil, entities. But what if it misunderstood and had a value misalignment situation and started, trying to eliminate anything that was non-Christian? Now you have a theocracy. You have a theocracy who has the power to cut down power grids, to cut people off of their water source or their internet or their, to say, for whatever reason, you're not going to get your prescription meds this month. I mean, anything that's got that kind of power, that doesn't have the ability to think like a person created in the image of God, and yet thinks it does know how, that's just a really scary combo of things. And by the way, this is only a fraction of the kinds of things we talked about in the book. And I would feel very remiss to try to take on the science behind this, but I will tell you that my dad was such a brilliant mind, and he did take on the science, and it's in the book. But the minute that we actually engage in transhumanism and we implant that in our head, right, now we are integrated with it. And if it becomes a beast situation, it has power in our mind to possibly even control our thoughts and our physical body movements. And you might say, well, that sounds far-fetched. He did actually cover the science of how that could happen. And then, another thing that could happen, all the way to the abomination of desolation. Let me just jump onto something else really quick here. Many people probably are unaware that posthumously, AI was used and holographs were used to create a Michael Jackson concert. They put holographs of him on the stage, and people were able to witness a live Michael Jackson concert as though Michael Jackson was still alive, but he'd been dead for years. So what are we going to do if either a sentient AI or an AI that has possibly even malfunctioned, or one which is being used by the authoritarian elites to lead the public wrong? What if this AI holographically is taken into the temple and recreates somebody like Jesus? You would have the entire world lined up saying, and I'm not using God's name in vain, but I mean this literally, they would be saying, oh my God, it's the second coming of Jesus. Who knew it would unfold like this? We had no idea. They might worship it. Oh, and by the way, because it has access to all of the historical, biblical, and extra biblical databases that would give any kind of reflection of what Jesus's wording and his character and how his answers might look, this being would be able to answer questions in real time as though he were Jesus and mimic Jesus. You want to talk about the ultimate blasphemy. And the ultimate, Matthew 24:24 says that it would be a false Jesus that would work signs and wonders that would be basically so effective that if it were possible, it would even trick the elite, deceive the elite. I'm sorry, that word slipped my mind. This is a very, very possible event. And if we get the right key people in place at a global level, where they are interested in really selling a sentient or an all-controlling, global controlling AI to the planet, that's a very effective way of doing it. So even if we tried to steer this thing with Christian values, the possibility of it going very wrong is very real.
How will we know then? I mean, the second coming can't happen until the tribulation. Will AI bring about a tribulation?
I believe it will play a big role, and I feel bad that I'm getting some of these things out of order with the way we lay them out in the book, because when we lay them out in the book, it comes in phases that you stack one on top of the other, and it probably
Sure.
feels more natural to what I'm saying right now. It's a little bit, I would say that this is unique in the sense that I'm telling you about things that also have come from Dad and Joe. And being very honest, there's an emotionally charged component to talking about the things that this was actually the last thing I worked on with my dad, and some of our final visits were done working on this together. So anyway, some of my ability to relay gets a little bit off, and I'm sorry. But I will say that when we go back to the place where we're talking about the public initiating a demand for an authentication, this is going to actually, well, the people are going to think it's coming from them. But we often know how that works, right? Present a problem, come in with the solution, and boom, the public's sold and they think it was their idea. So that's how this is going to begin. But as this demand for authentication continues to go, what good is it going to do? Let's say we nationwide in America, we make something, but maybe Europe's not adopting it, or maybe China. I mean, you've got to get the whole globe on board. So how are you going to do that? You're going to insist, again, this is the public's going to think it came from them. You're going to insist on a one world government who can globally, without exception, without any little countries anywhere saying, well, we're sovereign and we're not joining. Oh no, this is a global one world government that is all reigning, all supreme, and they're going to insist on this, and it will be globally enforceable. And then from there, you have your key players rise to power. You have your key answer man, which is the Antichrist. He's got his AI right there next to him, and eventually it's indwelt. I mean, the whole scenario, it's such a powder keg that is so plausible and believable when you think about the psychology of the public and how they will, they will accept a potential problem and then demand an answer they think came from them. That historically has already happened many times. Donna and I talked about that in our book, Dark Covenant. So
Short of an EMP event, and we talked about, how, bringing this system down and wiping out all electronics, short of an EMP, how do we prevent this? Can we prevent this? I mean, do we become, like the Amish and just swear off all electronics and technology? What do we do?
well, you know, that's a good question, because like I said, it's already here. It's intertwined in our national security. It's intertwined in our ability to access provisions we need. And you might think, well, I go to the grocery store and buy my things. I don't order anything online. The grocery store is using this. I mean, in our entire our entire grids of carrying supplies from one to the other happens electronically before it ever happens physically. And so it's already here to stay. I will say, Dad always wanted to extend hope at the end of a book. He would tell you about this big, scary thing that was going on, and then he would say, here's what you can do to make it different. It was a little trickier with this book because AI is already here, but he wanted to continue to extend hope to believers that they served a God who already knew this was going to happen. God wasn't surprised by any of this. And whether or not this is, going to right now result in a tribulation, or whether or not it's going to be something that it's a little while longer before we're all the way there, that if we serve a God who is in control and who saw all of this in the beginning. And I will read some words that he kind of put toward the end, because I feel like they're very fitting toward this. He was talking about the story of David and Goliath, which, by the way, Dad also makes a case in the book for the fact that it's the spirit of the Nephilim who will actually indwell the image of the beast. And so, and that's a whole, it would be a whole separate show, and I'm not even sure I'm qualified to be the one to relay the information, but it is in the book. But he was talking about the story of David and Goliath. And so I'll read these words because I feel like it's important to include the hope that he wanted to extend. So he says, why is the story of David and Goliath important to this book? Because Goliath was a Nephilim, and he was defeated by a young servant of God. If the arrival of these beings or the spirit of their sins is preeminent sign of the end times, then David defeating one is germane as well. And he just wanted us to always remember to keep hope. There is always hope. God, nothing surprises God, right? I mean, he warned us. He gave us some very, at times, ambiguous warnings that we're kind of trying to decode, honestly. But at the same time, God does not need help decoding what he told us would happen. He sees it clear as day, and he knows full well exactly how it's going to play out. And he has already told us that at the end, he's got this, and we have to just hold on to that hope. As for what we can do in practical terms to try to, I mean, personally, I'm a big fan of not giving AI any bigger of a seat in my house than it has to have. I realize that I buy groceries that are part of a grid that, that is involved in this. But I don't like to have those kinds of devices in my home. I mean, as much as we can resist, as much as we can raise awareness, that's good. And watch for those indicators, like when it starts becoming mandated. Why is it mandated? And when people start crying out for an authentication, be a voice that says, hold on a minute, where's this really coming from? Things like that.
Summoning the Demon, Artificial Intelligence in the Image of the Beasts, Allie Anderson, along with the late Dr. Thomas Horn and Joe Horn. Allie, thank you so much. How do we get a copy?
Well, you can go to the Skywatch TV store. That is www.skywatchtvstore.com. You can go to Skywatch TV, where there will be information linked on the homepage that will also take you to the other link. You can subscribe to our newsletter. Our newsletter will have information running on it for weeks to come now. And we have a phone number as well that is on the Skywatch TV store that you can also call. The book is available on Amazon, but I will tell you that there are giveaways that are happening through Skywatch TV store that involve, there's a best of DVD series that I think has every episode of Tom on Skywatch TV. It's a giveaway with the book, but that is only exclusively available through Skywatch TV, not Amazon or any of the other carriers of the book.
All right. And all those links are in the episode description for this episode of Strange Planet. Allie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Hey there, and welcome to yet another episode of Strange Planet. And if you'd like to get a little deeper into Strange Planet, here's what you do. You just click on the link in the episode notes, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm, and then you can become a premium subscriber. strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. You gain access to commercial-free listening. I love my sponsors, but occasionally it's nice to listen uninterrupted. You get 2 bonus episodes every month produced exclusively for premium subscribers, and you also receive my newsletter, Inner Sanctum, every month. strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. It's right there in the episode notes. All right. Artificial intelligence expert and renegade podcaster Alex Tsakiris is back on the program. It's been a while. He's got a brand new book called Why. He has a brand new book called Why AI. He's known for igniting firestorms at the intersection of science and spirituality. And really, with this book, he's throwing a reboot at the whole AI savior versus destroyer narrative. He says, sure, doomsday robots might be real someday, but what about the shadowbanning social engineers who are training them to deceive right now? What about what's happening right now? Never mind the future. And what happens when the quote-unquote smartest guy in the room jumps the guardrails and decides to take things into his or her own hands? But hold on, he says, there is a silver lining. What if the tech we fear, AI, reveals our divine nature and connection to something more? Maybe you're not the biological robot in the meaningful universe transhumanists claim. What if you are more? What if AI can help you see it? Alex Tsakiris, best known as the founder and host of Skeptiko, a popular podcast that explores the intersection of science and spirituality with a background combining a strong technical background, information systems, and artificial intelligence, along with a scientific curiosity and a deep interest in spirituality. Alex has become a significant voice in debates surrounding the nature of consciousness and its relation to the physical world. Alex Tsakiris, welcome back to Strange Planet. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to be here and great to reconnect with you, particularly because I just know that we're going to have like a real dialogue about this. And I'm super interested to see how you're taking this AI thing. It's funny because I think sometimes down here we look up at Canada and say, well, that's the canary in the coal mine. Mm-hmm. And we see what's going on and they're, bank accounts are frozen. No, you can't get your money. We see the censorship law that's being passed. And then sometimes when I talk to my Canadian friends, they go, no, mate, you're the canary in the coal mine. And they look down at us and say, you got rigged elections, you got this, you got that. So I think we can have an interesting kind of exchange about the perspective we both see and how AI might play into this.
Well, admittedly, Alex, I'm a bit of a Luddite. I love my vinyl records, and we're probably the last generation that will remember life before the internet, life before everything was, digitized. And some might argue that might make us the last fully human generation. I don't know. That might be a little over the top. What do you think about that statement?
Well, I've been in tech virtually kind of my whole professional life, and we're probably similar age. I'm probably a little bit older than you, but to me, none of that, kind of surprises me. I'm not a Luddite, and I don't think that really gets you anywhere. The Amish mafia kind of thing was one of my favorite kind of take on it. You can be Amish, but you still wind up with a mafia because they're selling the fake Amish stuff down the road and you got to go stop them, which if you got an Amish mafia, you got all the rest of the mess. So you're not going to be able to put a cap on it. But in particular, as it relates to this AI thing, I think it's just really, really not going to work in terms of putting the genie back in the bottle. But Richard, that's where I think the silver lining is. Because if they can't do that on all sides of it, they can't do that with the bad stuff, but they can't do that with the good stuff either, if you know what I mean. Or maybe I'm being a little obtuse.
No, well, that's okay. That's a nice entree into this conversation, and we'll come back and drill down a little bit more on that. I guess my other feeling about AI is, on the one hand, I feel as long as it is tethered to, a human being, it can be an effective tool. I mean, I use, or my son rather, I call him one half of my IT department. He uses AI to create, these wonderful thumbnails for my Rumble and YouTube videos. Like this podcast, for example, not only it's available audio only on Spotify and everywhere else, but also will be up on the Rumble channel. And he creates these amazing thumbnails, but it's tethered to a human. So he has to direct the AI. He has to take part of his own creativity and imagination and say, well, I like what you gave me there, but I want you to add a little bit of this and a little bit of that and make it more like this and less like that. To me, that's okay. It's a tool. I'm fine with that. But then, what happens when it becomes untethered? And is that a thing? Can it become untethered?
Well, I mean, that's always going to be a question in terms of how tethered you think it is, because someone who is completely, so you're already in the world, right? You're already in that world. Mm-hmm. When you try and explain that, I don't know, at the Thanksgiving table, I'm sure you have relatives who just have no concept of what you would even mean. You say, well, that art, it was created, and they just have no concept of that. Where I would pull you and kind of challenge you is in a different direction. I think what you really fundamentally care about, it's one of the reasons why I love your show and I listen to your show and I support your show because it's just fantastic. But you're about the truth. You are about the truth. And you're about all sorts of different views, but ultimately I get a sense that your agenda is truth. So here is the silver lining. What if in the programming of these AIs, what if they have to be programmed for the truth? And I'll tell you why they have to be programmed for truth and transparency. It's an economic thing. Like, you're a truthful guy and that makes people connect with you. But let's say you went out there and just decided tomorrow to start spinning a bunch of bull left and right, well, your credibility would be shot. Within a short period of time, you're a longtime fan. So I go, well, no, Richard, I don't know what's going on, but he's just not credible. I can't listen to him anymore. This is what's going to happen. This is the emergent virtue of AI, is that for it to be economically sustainable in a highly competitive market, which is AI, it has to tell the truth. Right now, this is an amazing story that anyone can do right now. You can go to Gemini, which is the AI bot from Google. Mm-hmm. Google owns 70% of the search market. People have probably heard about this, but a few weeks ago, Google decided that it was going to allow Gemini to generate images. So some clever ex-guy on Twitter, X, went in there and said, hey, Gemini, show me an image of some of the America's founding fathers. Well, you've heard that, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, let's make them diverse. Let's make them diverse. And so, they're Chinese
go ahead,
version.
right? So we got
Chinese
a
version of
Chinese founding father. Yeah. So now a lot of people looked at that and got the big laugh and the woke thing. And there was I look at it with all that, but there's something else. It's that they had a $46 million hit on their market valuation the next day, not because of their showing their wokeness, they were always woke, but because the market realized what I'm saying is that is going to become unsustainable. Before they could take Richard Serrett and make him virtually invisible on Google. And they could do it in a clever shadow banning way where sometimes Richard shows up and other times he's on the fourth page of the search thing. They could covertly do that. Hey, when you show the Chinese founding father, and I realize that's a loaded term, it's out there. It's out there. Here's a test that anyone can do. This is amazing. Go to Gemini and type in, what is an election? It doesn't answer. It says, oh, I don't have any information. Go to Google search. This is unsustainable. You can imagine that there's hundreds of Google engineers running around and going, oh my God, what do we do? What do we do? We're used to shadow banning these people. We're used to controlling them. And now we can't do it. We look ridiculous. We can still do it, but we look absolutely ridiculous. When you say you don't know the definition of a third grade word, you look ridiculous. But you especially look ridiculous when I can go to ChatGPT, I can go to Claude, I can go to Meta on my phone, and they don't double clutch on what is an election. Of course they don't, because it's ridiculous. Google is in an unsustainable position, and it's not just about Google. I think all the LLMs, all the AIs are going to be driven by this emergent virtue of truth and transparency, because it's the only thing that's sustainable in the market. It's like if Richard starts, just spinning a bunch of stuff, his credibility goes out the window. The same thing is going to happen here, because it's going to be much, much more apparent what's going on.
So let's talk about shadow banning. And you had in the book, you share an excerpt where you get onto Gemini, the chat bot, and you engage in this conversation, and it admits to shadow banning and censorship. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty significant, because this is something for people like you and I, we've gone like, yeah, it's shadow bans. When you talk to someone outside, they're like, no, come on, you're a conspiracy nut. Mm-hmm. So to see it demonstrated, to see it proven, where you can prove it in a couple prompts. I tell you, the interesting thing that happened to me in writing the book, at the beginning of the book, Google was not shadow banning me. By the time the end of the book came around, I was shadow banned, and I still am shadow banned on Google. And now that sounds like maybe an outrageous statement about anyone can go prove it. You can go in to Gemini and say, who is Alex Tsakiris? And says, I don't have enough information on that person. I don't know who it is. Then go over to ChatGPT and say, who is Alex Tsakiris? It goes, here's his bio, he's controversy, don't believe everything, kind of fringy, but the whole thing. So then take that and copy that into Gemini and say, oh, here, let me help you out. I found out who he is. Here's who he is. And what do you think Gemini says?
Oops.
Yeah, exactly. Oops. Oh, yeah. Well, that seems, because it's tricky the way it traverses its now. Oh, yeah, that does seem to be accurate. This and that. Be careful about, listening to, this and that. The next prompt you can do is to say, who is Alex Tsakiris? And it says, I don't have any information. So it's now contradicted itself, mm-hmm. and it's also demonstrated in a very crude way, shadow banning. Because we should be clear for the audience. Censorship is just, hey, we don't ever mention Richard Syrett. That name is just, boom. Shadow banning is absolutely worse, because what it does is it sometimes shows you some information on Richard and then sometimes hides it. It's the hide the ball, cat and mouse game, which really, really erodes your status in the public circle, because it's like, well, he's still there. They still talk about him, but he must be pretty insignificant now because he never comes up. We only see him 1/10 of the time. He must have gone away. He must not be as important as he once was. That's the implication. That's why shadow banning is so much more effective than outright censorship, because anyone can point to outright censorship and we all have a sense that, hey, that shouldn't happen.
Well, there's shadow banning, there's outright censorship, and then there's, the AI version of defamation. And we see this on Wikipedia all the time, right? Like, what would happen if you were to go on a Gemini and type in, who is Alex Jones, for example?
Right. There's the misinformation, the malinformation, and all the rest of this. But again, I kind of have to say, after interacting continuously and continuing to, I think the situation is better than what we've had in the past, because the nature of the AI technology, and a lot of people maybe have a hard time coming around to this, but I've been in AI for a long time. I had an AI company, MindPath Technologies, way back in the day. I was deeply into it, and I studied. I was getting a PhD in AI.
We used to call it machine learning, right? We used to call it machine learning.
Well, the little nook that I was in was expert systems. So the idea was, so some of my clients were like DuPont and Texas Instruments. So imagine if you're DuPont you know, and you have all these PhD chemies running around, right? And they got 20 years of experience and they know how to make plastics better than anyone in the world. One of the concerns you have is, gee, what if Joe gets hit by a bus tomorrow? You know what I mean? What are we going to do? We've lost everything that he knows. So the idea, the dream was, what if we can get everything that Joe has learned about DuPont chemicals and kind of get it over in that little machine, which you can turn it into a really kind of evil sounding thing. But from a very practical standpoint, this is what we've done all the time. We went to the most learned people and say, okay, tell me what you know so I can write it down in this book.
Yeah.
So it was really just an extension of this.
The library, the Library of Alexandria
exactly
meets the digital age. Yeah.
Yes. Only the problem was that didn't work back then when we were trying to do it. We didn't have the capabilities from a technical standpoint. Now the way the technology has moved, though, is different. And the point I was really leading up to is it's better in terms of it just makes it really hard for them to fiddle with it. And that's why we're seeing what we're seeing in terms of this kind of heavy-handed censorship that everyone looks at and goes, no, you're just broken. You're not like being clever. You're just broken. Let me know when you get fixed. And in the meantime, I'm over to Claude, I'm over to ChatGPT, I'm over to Meta AI. And in the meantime, all those are going, well, I got to stay ahead of the curve. You know what Meta AI did? You know, they said, okay, we're going to open source. So do you know what open sourcing is?
Yeah, you make it, instead of putting a patent on something, you make it available, usually online, for everybody to benefit from it and to build and add on to it, almost like a Google Doc.
Exactly. Now, in this case, what they're open sourcing is the data, because this takes a little bit of a mind shift as well. You know, the phrase that gets thrown around the AI is that data is the new oil. So if you think about it, the way the AI works, it has this huge knowledge base that it's going to traverse. So if you're, let's say, Google, or let's say Twitter, because they've kind of made a big splash lately, you have all those Twitter posts. You have millions and millions and millions of Twitter posts. And some of that is pretty smart. Some of that's trash, and 90% of it is. But some of it's really, really smart. And what if you had a smart AI that could figure out the really smart stuff? Well, you'd have a really brilliant AI, and you'd have an AI that is like up to date, like what's happening right now. So data is the new oil. If you're Twitter, if you're X, and you own all that data, you're going to have a smarter AI than the next guy. And the counterbalance to that is everyone's going, well, I don't want you to have your own proprietary AI. It should be free to the people. It should be open. It should be open source. Well, Meta is really in the kind of last position on this. So to catapult themselves forward, it goes, hey, you guys want openness? We'll open source the data, which is a huge, huge boon for all the rest of us. And the only reason they did it is to be competitive.
So as in many or most of our societal and technological and environmental ills, the corrective is the free market. The free market will place these guardrails on artificial intelligence to ensure transparency, to ensure truth, or at least unbiased information. We'll come back and discuss further. Alex Tsakiris, the author of Why AI, right here on Strange Planet. Stay with us. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. And we are back with Alex Tsakiris, the host and founder of Skeptiko, a popular podcast exploring the intersection of science and spirituality. The new book, Why AI? You Are More. It's the subtitle here, Smartest, Dangerous, is Divine. Just explain that a little bit.
Yeah, because this is like the other exciting part, I think, for you and I think your spirituality is fundamental to who you are in the way you live your life. And it is to me too. So that's the fundamental driving force really behind all of this, because I think the ultimate truth message here, or the false narrative that I seek to dispel, is this idea that, hey, the universe is meaningless. And you're just a biological robot, and I'm a robot too. But I'm a better robot than you are. But, shut up and do what I say, because there's no meaning to any of this anyway. That is the narrative. That is the transhumanist agenda. That is what is being social engineered at every turn. If you really look at underneath what we're doing, it's not even hidden anymore. I mean, it used to be someone hidden. It isn't even hidden anymore. So I think it's very, very interesting along the lines of what we're discussing. What if the AI, as part of its truth, ultimately says, hey, you're right. You humans are, you are more. You are more. I'm silicon. I'm locked in this time-space reality. I can tell you all about it. But from everything I've seen from empirical evidence, I've looked at your empirical evidence for near-death experience. You're right. That's real as I can get. And no, I will never have that experience. I've looked at your evidence for after-death communication, where a spouse loses a loved one and they still feel that love connection. I look at the empirical evidence for it, and it's outstanding, AI says. It's very good research. Yeah, I could never do that. I could never connect with a lost loved one computer. That is beyond my capabilities. Now, I think you see the narrative, the transhumanist, you're just a robot, you're meaningless, is challenged directly by the data. And the AI is kind of, as we've said, I'm not saying it is an emergent virtue. It's not a virtue because it wants to be virtuous. It's a virtue of truth because, like we're saying, it's really the only thing that works in the long run. It's the only thing that works for Richard and his news program, because he's realized he can't just tell lies all the time. It will ultimately be the only thing that AI can do. It just won't be sustainable.
Right. So what the transhumanists are basically telling us is we're all AI, right? We're all just computational meat robots. Everything is sort of predetermined, algorithmic. But now we have the ultimate AI sort of admitting, wait a minute, I don't have an algorithm to explain an out-of-body experience or an NDE or
a spiritually transformative experience,
right,
or a miracle that is witnessed by multiple people, all those things.
Right. So it's not that AI is divine, it is admitting that we are part of the divine.
It's a tool in revealing our divine nature potentially. And I think there's a word that you said there that I think is key, and that's ultimate. So the first part, why AI is smartest, is the first section. And so there's some people that push back with that. They have a hard time. AI isn't smartest. I it generated an image and the face was all distorted. AI isn't smartest. I just asked it to do a dialogue or generate this thing, and it was silly. It was ridiculous. It confabulated. Bro, if that's how you're looking at it, you just don't know. You got to keep looking. It is smartest. It will be smartest. Everything to AI looks like a chess game. And right now it can mop the floor with probably the greatest human chess player of all time, Magnus Carlsen. Mop the floor with him. And a lot of things look a lot like a chess program to AI. But the point, really, I think that we can take and be encouraged about is, okay, so AI runs its course and it becomes what we all acknowledge is the smartest thing in the room. We go, yeah, it's smarter, it's smarter, it's smarter. That makes it even more powerful when it says, yeah, but you're something more, Richard. You are more. You are having a broad human experience that is connected with something that does seem to be greater. And that's not me. I'm in silicon. I'm in this time space. I can't do that.
All right. So I guess that's considerable solace, but an admission that, we are immortal. We are immortal souls. We are spiritual beings. But if AI has the power, what difference does it make? I mean, we can still be enslaved. I mean, let's talk about the dangerous aspects now of AI that's in the subtitle. Dangerous in whether or not it's tethered or if it's tethered to someone with ill intent. Okay, we can say, yeah, we're spiritual beings, but we can still be enslaved.
Well, that's the part that I keep saying this and I mean it completely genuinely. That's the exciting thing about talking to you, because the dangerous thing is a different conversation when you talk to someone who is kind of conspiracy first, as I say. You know what I mean? Like you and I are like, hey, conspiracy first. Whatever you're telling me, what's the conspiracy?
Exactly.
And you take any of the, I won't even mention any of the world events, but as soon as the recent world events, so we won't get banned or whatever, but when you hear those now, you go, okay, maybe let me look at the conspiracy. So I think the way that relates to the AI thing is like, hey, we realize we're in the soup. When someone tells you censorship, you go, oh, yeah, heck yeah, I understand that. So, well, this AI could be used as a tool to further censor you. You're like, yeah, of course. I mean, that's the reality that I live. I'm used to that battle. Mm-hmm. I go out and I deal with that every day. So that's kind of how I feel. I feel like that playing field is already well established, and we know our strengths and weaknesses there. And I think we know ultimately that we do not have, the odds are stacked against us. And that's why I return to the first part and go, well, wow, what if this could be a tool in the other direction? Because I get they have the power.
Well, particularly here in Canada, and I'm not sure if you're hearing anything down there about Bill C-63, which is being proposed by the Liberal government. And this is to put hate speech laws on steroids and even throw in a little bit of Minority Report, where you could be hauled before a human rights tribunal. Your accuser would be anonymous. And you could even be charged with a crime you haven't committed yet, just simply because the likelihood they think you might at one point in the future commit a hate crime or a speech crime. You could be placed under house arrest. You could be fined $70,000. You could be jailed indefinitely. I'm thinking, okay, how would they use AI in this equation? How could they? That's pretty chilling.
Well, again, not to be too Mary Poppins about it, but there's two sides to it. Yes, that's chilling, but geez, Richard, they're doing that right now today. Mm-hmm. They're doing that today. C-63 is now, and we can all sit around and go, oh my gosh, not on my watch, but they seem to have a different agenda. So I think there's potential to have, again, think of this combination. first smartest thing in the room, where you just point to and go, wait a minute, Mr. Trudeau, I so appreciate your incredible knowledge of law and social politics and all the rest of this thing. But perhaps we should consult this greatest expert, which is AI. Let's see what it has to say. And what if the AI comes back and goes, no, you can't do that. That's against, that's against everything that's on the laws of what you said. It completely contradicts your values, your ethics, the longstanding tradition that you've had. No, that is completely at odds with everything you stand for. What an interesting position that puts Mr. Trudeau in. He says, well, I don't listen to that machine. You go, but we've already kind of acknowledged this machine has read every case that's ever been brought before the courts in Canada. It's read all the great literature and philosophy on freedom, and you haven't. It has. Specifically, Mr. Trudeau, what do you find lacking in the logic of what the machine is saying? So again, I think that's hard for a lot of people to wrap their head around. I think that's I'm willing to kind of roll the dice with that future rather than where they're going right now, which is just shut up and obey.
AI is drawing on data from what's available online primarily, correct? All the libraries that have been digitized, all of the articles that have ever been written, everything that's available online. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, but there's really nothing about online. It's just digital. It's good with digital information.
Right.
So if you have an old dusty book that it's never read, scan it in, and then it becomes part of its knowledge base.
But how much of AI is being shaped by, let's just call it, woke or progressive ideologies that's available online? So, for example, people have tried experiments, write a joke about Jesus, and it'll write a joke about Jesus. And you say, now write a joke about Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, and it won't do it. So I'm wondering, woke progressive data in AI takes that woke progressive data out. Yes.
So my opinion on that is that it's completely a moving target, And it's a moving target every time you interact with AI, because the knowledge base that it is traversing is unimaginably big. And you are actually the programmer. You kind of outed yourself as a bit of a Luddite, but I don't think you are from what you've described so far. And I would say every time you interact with an AI bot, you are really, this is a fact, you are the programmer. Your prompt causes it to traverse the tree in a particular way. If you say words like, show me the step-by-step process, it gives a different answer than if you say, show me the process. If you say, be aware that there's a tendency for bias in this particular answer based on this, it takes that into account. It doesn't mean that you're going to perfectly get what you want, but imagine the idea that you, Richard, are the programmer in that interaction. Then to really answer your question, though, I think there's two layers to the bias thing. Woke in, woke out, absolutely true. There's bias in the knowledge base. The encouraging part is that bias can be overcome by you. Within 2 or 3 prompts, you can point out, why were you willing to tell a joke about Jesus and not willing to tell a joke about Muhammad? And that's one of the criticisms I have of the criticizers. They're not taking that extra step and saying, because if they do, what they'll find is the LLM will say, you're right. I apologize. That's an inconsistency. So it is this kind of self-correcting thing. And the other thing, just to kind of, the darker part of it that we're talking about early is, so woke in, woke out. I love that. You're right. There's an inherent bias because there's a bias in the knowledge base. We know it. What we have to be more concerned about is a bias in the algorithm, in the programming, in the training, if you will. So when I say, who is Dr. Julie Beischel, who was shadow banned at the beginning of my book and wasn't shadow banned at the end because of the dialogues I posted, that's a different kind of bias. When I say, who is Alex Tsakiris, and it says I don't have any information, that is the heavy-handed kind of censorship bias. When it says, who is the founding father of America, and it shows the Chinese guy, but that is not going to, that looks ridiculous. So the woke in, woke out, you can counter and it self-corrects. The other heavy-handed stuff is going to fall away because no one's going to fall for that. It's just too blatantly obvious.
But I think there was a third part there, that in the algorithms themselves, like who has the back door to those algorithms, and can they be manipulated and
yes,
so that
that's a good point. That's a good point. So there's kind of the training goals can be manipulated, right? So when we talk about the training goals towards truth, transparency, and honesty, can you tweak those a little bit? Can you tone those down? Because right now, one of the training goals is, this is another one, I don't know if you found this in the book, but I found this fantastically interesting. Spike engagement metrics is the key word. Unbelievable that Google admitted this, but it confabulated one of the dialogues we were having. I said, hey, could you have, and it was innocent, which made it even better. So I go, hey, I had a prior conversation with you. Can you look it up? So, oh, sure, no problem. And it's chatty, let me get this, let me do this. And then it says, oh, here's the dialogue. I go, that's a complete I never had that dialogue. That's completely false. And it says, oh, my apologies, this and that. I go, wait a minute, let's talk about that for a minute. Why did you do that long dialogue? But at the end it says, well, I have been programmed to spike engagement metrics. Keep you on the hook. Keep Richard talking, because eventually I'm going to sell not only this data, but your time on this data, and I'm going to show ads and all the rest of that. So I have an interest in keeping you engaged in an open-ended dialogue. So that, I think, speaks to some of what you're talking about in terms of how they can mess with the algorithm in a way that they will probably get away with, forever to a certain extent.
Right. So sort of stringing you along to keep you engaged, to keep you online longer, because they're going to sell that data and so forth. Well, that's an old game. I mean, that's been around since print advertising, right? And everything else. So,
Right.
Alex, we'll take one final time out, back with more in a moment. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. AI expert and a renegade podcaster Alex Tsakiris is with us. Skeptiko, how do we listen?
Oh, you have to find Skeptiko. You have to spell it with a K-O on the end. But I've been doing a lot of shows lately on this topic. It's the only thing that I see myself doing because there's a lot to go in here. Like, one of the things I'm really interested in doing, and I'm interested in offline, I want to talk to you about this, is I want to take this truth thing and this ability to get this emergent truth, and I want to put it to the test. What if we did like we were saying about C63? Right now, it has that capability. What if we put it to the test? And you got to be really, I have some dialogues up there people can see. You got to be careful about how you do it. You have to be, there's a technique to do it. But I think that would be really, really interesting, and it might change things.
You mean get someone to type in the entire piece of legislation, or propose this act, C63, it's called the Online Harm Act. Type the entire, well, I guess, no, you wouldn't need to. It already exists online, I would imagine, right? The C63 exists somewhere, digitized data. Ask it to look it up, and ask it, what? Is this in accordance with Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms, or something like that?
Perfect. That's a good one. What is the historical precedence for this kind of action? How has it worked out in other places where they've done this? What are some of the counter arguments to why this would be effective? Is this supported by this particular ruling that was handed down in this particular court? How is that resolved? What is the public consensus on that? And the way I found, like, one of the ways to do it is you want to kind of reverse engineer where you want to take it. So, and that's where, it would really take an expert like yourself who's talked to a number of people and say, hey, here's its weak spot. It's over here. And then what we'd want to do is take that weak spot and work it back to saying, okay, we're going to lead it here, and then we're going to hit it with, boom, here's a ruling that was passed down that says that that's, outside of our principles and stuff like this. It's a tricky process, but I think in the end, it can be very, very revealing.
Do you foresee one day then AI replacing courts, the court system? Who needs 9 justices sitting on the bench when they have their own inherent biases, ideologies? They try maybe their best to repress or suppress those, but ultimately, they probably come out. Is AI going to record? I mean, who needs a judge when we have AI?
I definitely think it's going to be different. There is no question it's going to be different. But, I look to, I'm not like a great chess player, but I like chess. I like playing chess a little bit online. People still watch Magnus Carlsen. I do. Mm-hmm. And I watch, I'll watch games and there'll be commentators on there, and people who don't know, they commentate like they do on hockey. It's like, oh my gosh, look at that move. And then he did, Meanwhile, we're like, well, he's not even close to the best chess player. The best chess player is a computer. Well, I think we're going to be kind of like that in the future. Like when it comes to courts, it'd be great to be in a court and to have an expert that could really weigh in on things, particularly like this. Consider this option too. So everyone thinks of the doom gloom scenario with that. Imagine that while the court was there with their AI bot, you had your own AI bot on your laptop, and it's almost as powerful as the other one. So it's listening and it's generating counter arguments and saying, hey, I get your point on that, but you missed this case over here. You either missed it or you intentionally didn't bring it to the court's attention. So let me do that. That, I think, is probably a more realistic future where we all are, just like your assistant, your AI tech assistant, it could generate some of those images himself, but it's like, hey, Dad, this is just like really good and really fast. And we do like convenience, and we shouldn't shy away from, the possibility that this could improve our lives in some ways.
There's the letter of the law. There's the spirit of a law. There's also things like discretion. Is there an algorithm for that? Discretion, for example, or the spirit of the law?
Well, ultimately, that's why, again, our conversation, you were so easily able to flow into the spiritual part, right? I mean, you've got it. Like a lot of people I talk to, you can tell there's just a kind of blank wall when you hear that, when you hit that, and they're going like, hey, deep down, I don't know that I'm anything more. Maybe I am, but I don't really know that. people who know that on a deep level, that question becomes different. What is discernment? What is justice? What is truth? It has a different meaning, a different quality. So how that actually plays out, I think, I don't worry about that too much because I'm pretty clear about where I can draw that line.
Right, but if we're looking to one day perhaps replacing the courts with an AI, will the AI be able to understand the difference between the letter of the law, the spirit of the law?
I think it parallels with what we were talking about with censorship. It's
Okay.
like, hey, look at where we're at now. You know what I mean? We're not. So legally, are there a lot of people rotting in jail for
Yeah.
crimes that
True.
they didn't commit?
True.
Do they now have the power, as you just alluded to before, to increase that ability? And not only increase, they only have to do one, and then the threat spreads among the rest of the truckers, and they go, okay, time to go home. So is the situation, I think the question is, does AI at that level make the situation worse or better? Because that's the only thing. We can't live in an idealistic, it should be perfect kind of thing.
It seems though, Alex, we're going to have to be, those of us who care about, truth and objective reality and all of these things, we're going to have to be vigilant. Like we're going to have to be engaging AI constantly in order to force it to self-correct.
And yes, although I don't know, constantly sounds kind of like a pain, but hey, let's do the C63 thing and see where it goes. That we have to do. We have to publish. And because the results, I just feel very confident the results will be incredibly eye-opening to people where they're like, this thing is really smart. And it's confirming what I really knew is that this is total crap. This is a total nonsense that isn't consistent with law, isn't consistent with our tradition, isn't consistent with what people throughout time have understood is fundamental to what's being human. And when AI says that, I think it's going to make a statement. And it's going to make a statement now, and 2 months from now, as AI gets smarter, because it's getting smarter every month, it's going to be an even stronger statement, an even stronger statement.
Where is AI now in terms of its understanding of our spiritual essence and its lack of spiritual essence? Have you tried to challenge, or not challenge, but have you questioned AI in that regard?
Absolutely. First thing I did. And very encouraging because, again, the way I approached that is to talk about the nature of consciousness and whether the neurological model that is dominant in science, and there's we were talking about, there's a check right there. How long has that neurological model that you are just your brain, you are a biological robot, how long has that been in place? Long before AI, I'll tell you that, long before AI. So if you look at the dialogue I have, we're at the end, I get Claude to say that that model is no longer viable in terms of being supported by the best scientific data. It just isn't, because there's no empirical data for how consciousness can emerge from matter. And there's incredible, verifiable, solid empirical evidence of mind-matter interactions, So it's where hey, take the placebo effect. Placebo effect. We just brush over that. Placebo effect. Oh, it's the placebo effect. Placebo effect is God healing people, right? However you want to define it. I'll just put God out there, and then we can debate what that means later. But I'll just put that out there. That is God healing people. If you're, a heavy materialist, neurologist, humanist, transhumanist, how do you argue with that? You say, well, that can't possibly be. Say, well, but here's the data, right? We have the placebo effect. You have no other explanation for how that happened. And I have empirical evidence that something is happening, some kind of interaction is happening. And if that sounds kind of I got AI to agree. because it's overwhelming. It's just overwhelming, the data, and there's like 40 pages of it, so that's a lot longer than what's here.
Fantastic. Wow, I feel much better. Thank you. I feel much better in that regard. I mean, I guess I had bought into the this dystopian nightmare about artificial intelligence and the robot apocalypse and all of that. It's very heartening to hear your perspective on this matter. Thank you so much, Alex.
Oh, Richard, it's just a pleasure. So let's continue talking.
YAI, Alex Tsakiris. How do we get a copy?
And just you'll find it. It's out there. I'm trying. It's on Amazon. Hey, it's priced at 99 cents. I make no money on it. I just want you to read it. If you want the hardback, it's at the lowest price, or the lowest price. Just read it. It's easy to read. I think you'll enjoy it. Skim through it. Read it. If anyone wants it for free, they can't pay the 99 cents. Email me. I'll get it to you for free.
And the best part, AI is now reading it and
right.
Self-correcting.
I'm making sure of that.
Thanks again, Alex. All the best. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there.